Subconscious Power, Chapter 8, The Superconscious Planes. One of the most interesting and at the same time one of the most perplexing features attending the investigation of the phenomena of the other consciousness states of mental activity, which are included in the general category of the subconscious, is the undoubted evidence of the existence of what may be called respectively the higher and lower planes of mental activity in the great region of the subconscious. The subconscious, in fact, is discovered to be not merely a simple other mind, but rather to be a greater region of other consciousness, mental activity having its plains and its mountain peaks, its highlands and its lowlands, the great area of your new mental empire. In the lowlands of the subconscious are discovered those activities which seem to be more or less automatic, although manifesting both intelligence and a logical method of procedure. In the highlands are discovered certain other activities which transcend the ordinary intelligence of the conscious mentality, activities which, while not contrary to reason, nevertheless seem to proceed further and with less effort than the ordinary reasoning processes of the human mind. In short, in the great region of the other consciousness, there is discovered to be present a strange and perplexing mixture of both high and low, of that which seems little more than simple instinct, and of that which seems to partake of the nature of what may be called intuition. This discovery has caused much confusion and has served to upset many otherwise quite reasonable theories and hypotheses. Probably the most pronounced emphasis placed upon the distinction between the highlands and the lowlands of the subconscious is that maintained by certain schools of thought on the subject which, borrowing the idea from the Oriental philosophers, have sought to divide the region of the other consciousnesses into two great areas known respectively as the subconscious and the superconscious. The former area including the lower phases of subconscious mental activity, the latter area including the higher phases to which we have referred. But it is impossible to draw a positive and definite line between the high and the low areas of the subconscious. That great region is not one in which all the lowlands are on one side of a given line and all the highlands are on the other side. Instead, in it, just as in any great physical region, there are alternating areas of valleys and plains and of hills and mountains. As in the physical world, so in the psychical world, one unusually needs to travel upward, not merely east, west, north, or south, in order to reach the high levels. Moreover, it is impossible to draw a hard and fast line between the higher and the lower activities. These activities frequently blend so into each other that it is most difficult to determine whether they belong in the higher or to the lower. There is, in fact, an indefinite immediate area in which the higher and lower blend, mingle, and form combinations. It has been found more satisfactory to employ the illustrative example of the solar spectrum with its various colors, with their shadings and blendings, with its infrared regions existing in invisible form on the one side, and its ultraviolet regions, likewise invisible, existing on the other side, with the great visible regions existing in the center. While we are favorable to the occasional employment of the term the superconsciousness to designate the highest of the activities of the subconscious, we still prefer the general term of the subconscious to designate the entire region of the other consciousness planes of man's mental activity. Many leading writers on the subject of the subconscious have testified to the existence of these planes, of its activities and powers, and have pointed out the distinction between these and the lower planes of its manifestation. They have demonstrated that there are out of consciousness mental operations which are above the horizon of ordinary consciousness, rather than below it, regions of the higher soul and spirit life, of which we are only at times vaguely conscious, but which always exist and link us to external verities. They have expressed the conviction that there exist in the realm of human mentality certain supernormal and transcendental powers, of which at present we catch only occasional glimpses, and that behind these there are fathomless abysses, the divine ground of the soul, the ultimate reality of which our consciousness is but a reflection or faint perception. In these higher regions of mentality, say they, all the higher mental operations are conducted. It is here that genius works. This is the higher mental realm of which Carlyle speaks when he says, Shakespeare's intellect is what I call unconscious intellect. There is more virtue in it than he himself is aware of. The later generations of men will find new meanings in Shakespeare, new elucidations of their own human being. It is this that Goethe had in mind when he said, I prefer that the principle from which and through which I work shall be hidden from me. It is this to which Ferrier refers when he says the sublimest work of the intelligence are quite possible and may easily be conceived to be executed without ordinary consciousness of them on the part of the immediate agent. It is this which inspired Emerson to bid us to trust the higher consciousness, even though you can render no reason, and whose report shall ripen into truth, and you shall know what you believe. Emerson also hints at the same truth in these lines. Delicate omens traced in air, to the lone bard true witness bear. Birds with auguries on their wings chanted undeceiving things. Him to beckon, him to warn, well might then the poet scorn. To learn of scribe or courier, hence writ in vaster character. The lower planes of the subconscious contain only that which has been placed there by heredity, by the suggestions of others, by the conscious experiences of the individual, or by the imperfect reflection of the subconscious faculties before the latter have unfolded their message to the conscious mentality. The higher regions, the superconscious, on the contrary, contain much which man has never before experienced consciously or subconsciously. Many careful thinkers hold that just as that which manifests on the conscious planes today will be passed on to the subconscious levels tomorrow, so much that is now locked up in the regions of the superconscious will be passed down and revealed to consciousness at a later period in the evolution of the individual and of the race. Much that is now a familiar manifestation in the ordinary consciousness was at one time the exclusive property of the superconscious. Likewise, in the future states of the spiritual evolution of the race, the superconscious will bestow upon the ordinary consciousness much that is now revealed only in occasional flashes of inspiration, genius, or illumination. One of the present writers expressed the following ideas in a much earlier work, published in 1902, which he has found no reason to change in the intervening 20 years. From the region of the superconscious comes that which is not contrary to reason, but which is beyond ordinary reason. This is the source of illumination, enlightenment, genius, inspiration. This is the region from which the true poet obtains his inspiration, the exceptional writer his gift, the real seer his vision, the veritable prophet his knowledge. Many have received messages of this kind from the region of the superconscious and have thought that they heard the voice of God, of angels, of spirits, but the voice came from within. In this region are to be found the sources of intuition. Some of the superconscious faculties are higher than the others, but each has its own part to play. Many a man has received an inspiration from within and has given a message which has astonished the world. Many poets, painters, writers, sculptors have acted upon the inspiration received from their superconscious. Certain great poems, certain great writings, certain great pictures, certain great statues have about them an indefinable something which appeals to us and make us feel their wonderful strength, that mysterious quality absent from the productions of ordinary mental effort. Even scientists, commonly regarded as materialistic, have frankly admitted that they can conceive of the possibility of mental states as much higher than those of the average man, as the latter are higher than the mental states of the black beetle, and that there is no difficulty in conceiving the existence of degrees of intelligence as much superior to ordinary intelligence as the latter is superior to mechanical motion. Science informs us that consciousness has evolved from the state of mere sensitiveness, which was but little more than the chemical sensitiveness to stimulus, thence on to true sensation, high and low, thence on to simple consciousness, high and low, thence on to self-consciousness, high and low. Is it to be supposed that evolution has nothing further to unfold in the nature of consciousness? Is it not more reasonable to believe that just as sensation evolved from mere sensitiveness, just as simple consciousness evolved from sensation, and just as self-consciousness evolved from simple consciousness, so may there be other and higher forms of consciousness destined to evolve and unfold from our present stages of consciousness? In fact, it would appear that even at the present time, some of these higher faculties are beginning to dawn upon the race. Is it reasonable to believe that this new consciousness will partake of the character of that which we seek to indicate by the term intuition? The term intuition, rightly understood, perhaps best indicates the characteristic elements of the higher subconscious knowing or activity, of that phase or aspect of the subconscious which has been called the superconsciousness. Webster defines intuition as ordinarily understood as direct apprehension or cognition, immediate knowledge, as in perception or consciousness, involving no reasoning power, quick or ready insight or apprehension. Many seek to convince us that intuition is the source of its own knowledge, that it has no need for data derived from experience. But this view is disputed by others who hold that intuition is merely a higher form of reasoning. We, however, are inclined to the view that intuition is a higher form of reasoning, proceeding perhaps by shortcuts impossible to our ordinary conscious reasoning processes, and manifesting its action in an almost incredibly brief period of time. The marked difference between the clear, acute, and rapid reasoning processes of the trained thinkers of the race and the clumsy, dull, heavy, and slow reasoning of untrained minds gives us a hint concerning the nature of intuition, and contains a hopeful promise of further evolution along the same lines. It is possible in imagination to conceive of mental faculties and powers sufficiently evolved and developed to be able to grasp the essential relations and data involved in a problem in a new way, in a way in which there is manifested a highly increased power of perception, apperception, and generalization, and able to perform the processes of induction and deduction, or perhaps a reasoning process higher than either, with intensive effort and greatly increased speed. An individual possessing this power would appear to the ordinary thinker as one able to know without knowing at all, though such individual would really be performing each and every stage of thought. The rapid movement of the moving picture films causes us to perceive the picture as continuous and unbroken, whereas in reality, it is composed of many separate and particular units. A rapidly revolving object seems to us to stand still. So may it be with the mind operating with a highly increased speed, accompanied with a highly increased power of perception, apperception, generalization, etc. The careful examination of the thought processes of certain exceptional thinkers of the race would seem to support the idea of an intuitive reasoning, proceeding in the way just indicated. Careful thinkers have held the scientific fact that man will evolve the mechanism of thought sufficient to deal with the more complex and difficult problems which are forcing themselves before the human mind and which are demanding solution. Haeckel has said, "There is no scientific problem which we may dare to say the mind of man will never solve, no mystery so deep or profound. No question has or ever will be asked, but a mind or brain will be evolved capable of solving or answering." Stevens says, "If it becomes essential for mankind to know, infinite nature will evolve an organ of mind that can comprehend." Psychology furnishes us with analogies sufficient to warrant us in speculation concerning the possible effect of mental progress greatly speeded up, and yet proceeding in logical sequence. The intensely rapid action of the mind in certain dream states and in cases in which certain anesthetics have been administered gives us a valuable hint. It is within the proper limits of scientific imagination to speculate concerning the possible existence of mental states in which the logical conclusion from a given premise might seem to be arrived at practically instantaneously, just as a sufficiently speeded up moving picture projector would be able to present to us in an almost simultaneous picturing the beginning and ending of a scene, all that came between being imperceptible. Time, as experienced by the mind, is purely relative and comparative. The midge lives a lifetime of vivid experience in an hour of time or less. While on the other hand, we may conceive of beings of a high order to whom 1,000 years is but a day. Under intense pressure, the minds of human beings have been known to act with an almost incredible rapidity and with an almost superhuman clearness, power, and effort. We say even of ordinary efficient thinkers that they think in a flash, or that they reach a result almost intuitively. These facts serve as striking hints concerning the character and nature of the processes of the intuition manifested by the higher planes of the subconscious, the so-called superconscious planes of mentation. The only known method whereby an individual may increase and develop the degree of the manifestation of the intuitive powers of the higher planes of the subconscious, apart from the mystical practices, many of which are of quite doubtful value, and apart from certain psychic methods, which are often positively dangerous and harmful, consist of the calm recognition of the existence of these higher powers of the subconscious and the courteous reception and entertainment of the reports coming from them. Recognize its powers as those of your higher self and accept its services as rightfully belonging to you, yet receive them with thanks. Open your mind to the rays coming from above and profit by the energizing power of that light. Seek development along these lines and let the power unfold naturally, gradually, and in accordance with the law of evolution. Do not try to force the growth, nor to employ unnatural methods. Here is the rule by which you may determine whether a report of intuition comes from the true higher planes of mind or whether it is a distorted reflection reaching you from some of the lower planes. The true intuitive report will never run contrary to reason properly exercised and interpreted, though it may transcend the possible reports of the ordinary reasoning processes. Do not accept the report as correct if it runs contrary to your highest reason or if it is opposed to your common sense. Intuition is higher reason, reason plus, or reason more so. It is never anti-reason or the opposite of reason. Reason has been evolved by nature to provide man with the same and safe standards of belief and action. Therefore, you should never seek to discard it in order to adopt some anti-rational report, attractive though the latter may appear to be at first sight, nor how highly recommended it may come. You should welcome the opening and unfoldment of the higher planes of reason, but you should always assure yourself that the essential principle of reason is present in the reports of any part of your mind before you accept them as final. You should regard reason as the evolving instrument of your experience and expression, not as a fixed and unalterable mechanism beyond the possibility of further growth, improvement, and development. Avail yourself of the services of intuition, your higher reason, but always stand firmly on the solid rock of practical reason, for there your safety lies. Intuition, if real and true, is always reason plus. Never by any chance is it reason minus. It is reason raised to a much higher degree than we commonly experience, but its essential character, nature, and principle remain unchanged. Keep this fact in mind and your feet will rest on solid rock. Lose sight of it and ignore it, and you may wander on to the sinking sands of error. In addition to the offices and powers of the superconscious, which we have mentioned, there is another and most important function of that phase of the mentality, which may be called the protective power. Many persons, most persons in fact, have at times experienced this beneficent power. They have felt strongly that they were in close contact with a force, power, or entity of some kind, which was in some way higher than themselves, but which was concerned with their welfare. This beneficent presence has been interpreted in various ways in accordance with the trend of thought of those experiencing it. Some of the ancients called it the kindly genius. Others termed it the guardian angel. Still others have thought of it as my spirit friend, while many others, though quite vividly conscious of its presence and power, have failed to give it a special name. But by whatever name it may have been thought of, or even when no name at all has been applied to it, The mysterious something has been recognized as a beneficent present power. But by whatever name it may have been thought of, or even when no name at all has been applied to it, the mysterious something has been recognized as a beneficent presence power, a hovering and brooding something or somewhat, animated by a warm, kindly interest in the individual, and seemingly devoted to his interests and disposed to render to him useful services. This beneficent presence power has often acted as a warning guardian in the lives of many persons. In other cases, it has been felt to have acted subtly to bring about advantageous results and conditions for the persons to whom it had protected. In other cases, it has been felt to have acted subtly to bring about advantageous results and conditions for the persons whom it protected. It has led some into circumstances and conditions calculated to be of advantage to them. It has drawn others away from conditions and circumstances calculated to bring harm to them. In short, it has played the part of the kindly genius or the guardian angel to many an individual. The touch of this unseen hand has been felt by countless individuals, very likely by you who are now reading these lines. It has cheered men when the tide of circumstances seemed to be running against them. It has animated them with a new lively spirit, has encouraged them to renewed endeavor, has filled them with new courage when they needed it most. It has seemingly led persons into the presence of other persons and things, into conditions and environments which have proved advantageous to them. Men in all ages, some of the most practical and hard-headed men of affairs, among others, have felt the touch of this unseen hand and have gratefully acknowledged its help in times of need, even though they have been perplexed concerning its real character. To many careful thinkers who have earnestly investigated this phenomenon, it has seemed that this beneficent presence power, this unseen hand that has reached out in times of need, is not an external power nor an entity outside of ourselves, but it is rather a manifestation of that part of man's mental nature which we have considered under the term the superconscious. Instead of being an entity outside of us, it is believed to be a part of ourselves, a phase, part, or aspect of ourself that manifests above the level or planes of ordinary consciousness. In short, this kindly genius or guardian angel is your own superconscious self, manifesting on some of its higher levels or planes of activity and power. In this higher self, you have a friend far truer, more constant, and more loyal than can be any other friend, for it is yourself in its essence and substance. Your interests are its interests, for you are one with it in essential being and power. It will manifest a fidelity to you and a watchfulness over your real interests, which is amazing in its devotion and constancy. It will manifest towards you, in turns, the protecting care of a father, the brooding, watchful, loving care of a mother, and the helpful, fraternal interest of a brother. It will be all these things to you and more, if you will but give it a chance to unfold its presence and to manifest its power in your life. This higher self, this phase of your superconsciousness, needs but the encouragement of your recognition and realization in order to manifest its power in your behalf. It is seemingly discouraged, disheartened, and abashed by your indifference, unbelief, and the failure to recognize its presence and to realize its power. It does not need training or developing. All that it asks is to be recognized and realized by you and to have from you a kindly, sympathetic reception. It has done much for you in the past. It will do more for you in the future if you will but meet it halfway. This higher part of yourself is full of discernment and of cold, keen-edged wisdom. It can see far ahead and is able to discern and select the right road for you to travel and then to lead you into that road and to keep your feet on its solid substance in spite of your efforts to take a side path or to wander into the ditches which lie on either side of the road. You would do well to get off by yourself once in a while and then there to commune with your higher self, to have a little heart-to-heart visit with it. You will find this higher self to be a wonderful companion, one closer to you than can be any human being, for it is yourself and nothing but yourself manifested on the higher planes and levels of your being. You will emerge from these periods of self-communion with renewed strength and vigor, filled with the new hope and faith, animated by new ambitions and purposive determination. In this book, we have presented to you a view of your new mental empire, a view of its lowest and its highest planes and levels of its highlands and its lowlands. It is your own empire, yours. Yours it is to rule and to govern, to explore and to cultivate. You are at home in it. The many wonderful phenomena manifested in its immense region are your phenomena. Yours to control, direct, develop, cultivate. Yours to restrict, restrain, inhibit at your will, as you will, by your will. Do not allow yourself to be tempted by the wonderful powers manifested by some of your subordinate mental machinery or instruments. Do not allow yourself to fall under the spell of any of the phenomenal manifestations in your mental wonderland. View all, respect all, use all, demand and secure aid and work from all, but never lose sight of the fact that you, your real self, the I am I, is the master of this land, the ruler of this empire, and that you rightfully have power and dominion over it, all its inhabitants and all contained in its realm. Your I am I, your real self, you are a center of consciousness and will, of personal power, that infinite and eternal power, that ultimate power from which all things proceed and in which we live and move and have our being. Your physical body and your physical energies, your mental mechanism and its energies, manifesting on all and any of the planes or levels of consciousness, subconsciousness, or superconsciousness. All these are but instruments or channels of expression of your real self, the I am I of you. You, the I am I, are the center of your personal world of experience and manifestation. Keep ever your rightful place at the center of that world. Observe all the rest whirling and revolving around that center as the planets revolve, whirling around the sun. You are the sun. Do not lose your balance, nor be induced to move away from your central position to accommodate any of your subordinate planets, not even the greatest of them. Hail, mighty emperor, enter into and possess, rule, and govern your new mental empire. It is yours. Here at the conclusion, as at the beginning of this book, let us remind you of the truth of the ancient aphorism. You are greater than you know.